You know me, Marge. I like my beer cold, my TV loud, and my homosexuals flaming.
This 1997 episode of The Simpsons doesn't just mark a turning point for queer characters on television, it's a turning point for homophobia on television as well. With an unlikely appearance by cult filmmaker John Waters, the episode features a groundbreaking depiction of intolerance, a crash course in camp, and a smarter conversation about queer Americans than on any other show at the time, all in a medium that was still thought of as only being for kids. All aboard and welcome to Matt Baum's Culture Cruise, where we take a look at LGBTQ themes in movies, TV shows, books, and more. On this month's episode, we're taking a trip to Springfield, a hell of a town, for a deep dive into the episode Homer's Phobia. The Culture Cruise is made possible through the support of folks like Zachary Davis, who pledge $1 or more a month on Patreon. Click the link in the description or visit patreon.com/mattbaum to help support this series. Like everything in the 90s, it all starts at the mall. The family is browsing at a kitschy store called Cockamamie's, subtle, and they meet the owner, John, a pencil-mustached aesthete with a passion for peculiar objects.
Inflatable furniture, or Last Supper TV trays, or even this bowling shirt.
John loves anything that's over the top, and he loves The Simpsons because if they're anything, they're over the top, sometimes literally.
I have something that I'd like to sell.
Please tell me it's your hair.
John the character is played by John Waters the director, and it is extremely weird to see him palling around with the suburban nuclear family. Consider the attitudes exhibited by his earlier works.
The world of heterosexual is a sick and boring life.
Filth are my politics. Filth is my life.
Tell your mother I hate her! Tell your mother I hate you!
When this episode aired in 1997, it was surprising to see a queer character on any show. But what was even more surprising is that The Simpsons managed to make John Waters look positively wholesome. He runs a store, he's funny, he's got taste, and when he's invited to their home, it's The Simpsons who are trying to impress him, rather than the gay guy trying to make a good impression on the straights. And impress him they do. When he pays a social call, it's like he's on a safari, entranced by all their Americana.
Ding dong. Classic. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? Oh, the color scheme and the rabbit ears. Oh, I've got the exact same curtains, only in my bathroom, and pearls on a little girl. It's a fairy tale.
He's right, it is a little ridiculous that Lisa wears pearls, and why hasn't anyone ever commented on it? John can see the family in a way they can't see themselves.
Oh, Homer, you are the living end.
Homer's delighted by his new friend, but alas, the honeymoon can't last forever. And so we get the classic sitcom trope of the clueless heterosexual in denial.
Didn't John seem a little festive to you?
Couldn't agree more. Happy as a clam.
He prefers the company of men.
Who doesn't?
This is nothing new. Shows have been squeezing comedy out of this setup for decades. In the 70s...
More like a marriage.
A marriage? Oh, but it couldn't be. I mean, you and Cousin Liz was both get...
In the 80s...
I'm quite fond of you. I'm fond of you, too.
And in the 90s.
John is a homo...
Right?
Sexual.
This revelation touches off a panic for Homer. A man who just a few minutes ago was a fun new friend is now his enemy.
And not because John's gay, but because he's a sneak. He should at least have the good taste to mince around and let everyone know that he's that way.
Homer can't even explain why he's so upset. He just expresses a constant baseless disapproval. Not because of anything John did, but just because Homer cooked up that disapproval all on his own.
You liked John this morning.
While Homer fumes back home, the rest of the family has a delightful outing with John. For most of the world, spending time with gay friends is normal and pleasant. It's just Homer who's got a problem. He has rules when it comes to queer people. He has expectations, and John isn't what he expects.
You know me, Marge. I like my beer cold, my TV loud, and my homosexuals flaming.
In real life, this attitude wasn't just isolated to a few Homers. It was pretty common at the time. The same year this episode aired, Ellen had her big coming out episode, and people protested outside TV stations.
I'm fed up with lesbianism being treated as a normal lifestyle.
Homer's homophobia isn't an exaggeration or satire at this point, it just was how a lot of people felt at the time, particularly about sitcoms. After some breakthrough shows in the 1970s, in the 80s and 90s there was a general scrubbing of controversial social issues from sitcoms. Queer characters were rare outside of brief cameos, and were usually a punchline or an object of pity or obscured in jokey innuendo.
Hello, Smithers. You're quite good at turning me on. You probably should ignore that.
When queer characters did appear, it was usually on very special episodes where their queerness presented a problem. But with John, we're getting a character who's not only openly gay, but who doesn't use euphemisms, isn't ashamed, isn't tragic. Uniquely for a TV show of the time, John's being gay isn't a problem. The problem is Homer's phobia.
Homer, what have you got against gays?
You know, it's not usual. If there was a law, it would be against it.
Well, first of all, there was a law in 1997 when this episode aired. Many states criminalized homosexuality. Second, when Homer says it's not usual, what he means is that it's not usual to him. It's not what he's used to. What he's really upset about is that the world is changing, and he blames the gays for making his familiar world so...
Queer?
Yeah, and that's another thing. I resent you people using that word. That's our word for making fun of you. We need it.
There's a lot to unpack here 20 years later about terminology. The debate about using the word queer continues to rage, and that's going to have to be a topic for another video. For now, all Homer knows is that times are changing. John is openly gay, and that's not something he's used to. And his anxiety finds a focus in Bart.
Bart, where'd you get that shirt?
I don't know. Came out of the closet.
Later, watch Homer's face as Bart chooses a dessert. He is terrified that Bart might be gay, especially after he catches Bart in a wig and heels. And so Homer tries to force his son to be straight, first by making him stare at a sexy cigarette ad, but that doesn't exactly work.
I kind of want a cigarette.
What's your brand?
Anything slim.
Homer tries again by taking Bart to the manliest environment he can think of, a steel mill, but that doesn't meet his expectations either.
Hot stuff coming through.
And then we're treated to another of my favorite sitcom tropes, gay bars as imagined by straight people. I have to say, this is one of the better depictions, much better than the gay bar that's lit like a dentist's office on Maude, or whatever's going on in this Dockers Heavy clip from Third Rock from the Sun.
We're fabulous!
Homer is becoming increasingly aware that the world is changing. Gay people are everywhere, and nobody seems to mind except him and a few like-minded idiots.
Whole modern world's got a swishifying effect on kids today.
Homer's phobia has isolated him from his family. He's let it come between him and his new friend. There used to be a time when a dumb sitcom dad could freely express contempt for gays in his own home.
Just because a guy is sensitive and he's an intellectual and he wears glasses, you make him out a queer.
I never said a guy who wears glasses is a queer. A guy who wears glasses is a four-eyes. A guy who is a fag is a queer.
But now, Homer's got to hide in a bar with a handful of other bigots whose ideas about gays are even worse than his. In times past, Moe says, men were made straight by sending them to war. But there's no war they can send Bart to, so Barney proposes the next best thing.
Bart could shoot a deer. That's like shooting a beautiful man.
Out they go to the forest for some male bonding. The trip is nearly a complete failure until they stumble upon a bunch of penned-up reindeer. Homer insists that Bart shoot one, but before anyone can open fire, the reindeer get agitated, and suddenly these defenders of masculinity aren't so tough. Homer is attacked and kind of half-trampled, but then John shows up in the nick of time with a kitschy Santa robot that, through cartoon logic, scares the reindeer away.
It's a miracle!
No, Ultra Suede is a miracle. This is just good timing.
Their lives are saved, and Homer's phobia is suddenly over, at least towards John.
Well, Homer, I won your respect, and all I had to do was save your life. Now, if every gay man could just do the same, you'd be set.
Amen to that.
Behind John's sarcasm is a bitter truth about how some people rationalize their bigotry even to this day. While most of the Simpsons can just enjoy John's company, Homer can't accept him until he does him a favor. And even then, he's okay with John, but only John. He can accept one gay friend, but not gays in general. And that was a not uncommon attitude back then as well as now. For example, on one hand, Roy Moore says he's okay having gay friends.
I've had many friends who are homosexual.
But he also said,
homosexual conduct should be illegal.
Let's just be clear, if you think two adults should be arrested for falling in love with each other, you're probably not a great friend. But that's where we leave Homer at the end of the episode. He's okay with gays that he knows, like John, and potentially, one day, Bart.
Maybe it's just a concussion talking. But any way you choose to live your life is okay with me.
That's a nice thing to say, setting aside the whole choose thing, but at least Homer's phobia has mellowed a bit, and it only takes another 8 years for him to be okay with gays, provided they pay him.
Queerly beloved, we're here to join Veronica and Patty in matrimony.
When the Homer's Phobia episode aired back in 1997, there was a lot of hostility toward queer people, in real life and on television. It was common for LGBTQ characters to be mocked on TV, or to be a source of trouble if they appeared at all, which was rare. But by depicting John the character as well-adjusted, calm, and trouble-free, the show doesn't just invert what John Waters the person was typically known for. It inverts what audiences expected at the time from queer characters. He wasn't tragic or ridiculous. Instead, it's Homer's bigotry that's the problem. The episode makes it clear, if you think there's something wrong with gays, then there might actually be something wrong with you. Land ho, we're pulling into port. Thanks for joining me on this culture cruise, and thanks to everyone who makes the culture cruise possible with your pledge of $1 or more a month on Patreon, folks like Zachary Davis. If you're enjoying the show, you can visit patreon.com/mattbaum or click the link in the description to join the folks who make the show possible. Let me know in the YouTube comments what culture you'd like to visit on future episodes, or tweet at me @mattbaum. I read all the comments and I love hearing your thoughts. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go practice my affectations. Bonsoir.